enthusiasts, My Art Broker Talks is back and ready to bring you the news. I am here with none other today than our sales specialist, Jasper Tordoff, and we are going to provide you with a recap of the art market's performance in the first half of the year. So, Jasper, how are you?
I'm very well, Sheena. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. How has your summer been?
Oh, it's been good. It's been long, relaxing, but very hot summer, and so it's nice to be sort of back and then geared up for a busy September and October.
Yeah, I fully agree. As I'm sure all of our listeners know, the art market gets a little sleepy during the summer months, so it is pretty calm and relaxing. It's a good time to catch up on everything. But yeah, as you mentioned, this is exciting. I'm excited to jump back into the news and the auctions. Are you?
Yeah. A lot of news. So much art news this summer. Always comes at the least expected times, really. I know we'll sort of touch on it later, but obviously the Banksy news has been ripping through the headlines recently.
Yes. So not to give anything away too soon, but for our listeners, we do have some special Banksy news that I'm sure his London Zoo has been on everyone's minds. So I'm really excited for you to take us through that later. But first, let's get into the market. So as many of our listeners likely know, and anyone who follows the art market, performance levels are down. Our friends at Art Tactic have released their half-year analysis market report, which is always insightful. So if any of our listeners haven't checked out Art Tactic's market reports, please do so. Their research looks at the overall market performance from the major auction houses, including Christie's, Sotheby's, and Phillips. And their research shows a 27% decrease, with a weakening at the top end of the market compared to the same period from the previous year. So similar to our findings here at MyArtBroker, in the print sales at auction, where you can find all of our market reports and articles at Edition Magazine via our website, we have noticed similarly that print sales are down as well. However, throughout this pod, I think the message that Jasper and I hope to convey is that despite the dip in numbers, there does remain a strong appetite for buying and collecting art. Even when prices drop, art continues to be a tangible asset, and selective purchasing among some can also lead to opportunistic buying for others. So it's important to remember when analyzing the market, auction sales don't necessarily paint the entire picture. High-profile auction sales are not the only way to buy and collect art. And there are other avenues, which is what we want to emphasize. The private market and online trading platforms like MyArtBrokers offer, they really do offer a different avenue for purchasing, for collecting. They offer stability during market softenings and protecting the value of works when public sales don't meet expectations. So yeah, hopefully our recap of the art market will shed some light on all of this. So with that in mind, I've talked enough. So let's go to the beginning of the year. Jasper, should we start with the print sales? From January, print sales always kick off the year with major monthly offerings up to the marquee sales. So should we start with those? Do you want to give us a recap of what sold in the print market?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good place to start. Obviously, after sort of the Christmas holidays, everything gets quite quiet and then slowly builds up to perhaps the sort of end of January, which is when we saw the Phillips evening and day sale, which it's always very hotly anticipated. It sort of sets the tone for the year. Everybody's quite excited. Collectors, it's almost they're so excited to have the opportunity to buy new works. And really, the Phillips evening and day sale, which was hosted in London, had an exceptionally strong sell-through rate of 92%. rate, with 36% of sales selling above the high estimate, which is incredibly strong, particularly if we compare that towards last year's January and the results that happened there. Only 6 lots actually went unsold. So for anyone that had works consigned in that sale, they probably were very pleased with the results. I mean, we didn't actually expect that there's a general sort of sense in the art market, particularly in the print market, that there's been a sort of a new sort of softening. The market has corrected slightly. You can see that by all of the major lots, particularly lots by Warhol, Banksy, David Hockney. We can see that the results aren't as strong as they have been previously. But it was a cracking sale. It probably had a lot of the success was probably due to the fact that it coincided with the London Art Fair. So there was probably a lot of collectors in London that probably went to see the exhibition and the showing at Phillips, and likely bidded as a result. One lot from that sale that did quite well, and is also important to point out because it shows what the market has done over the last 2-3 years, was the Queen Elizabeth by Andy Warhol, which was taken from the Royal Edition. This work sold for just over £240,000 after the buyer had paid the fees. Was also from the Art Edition, which is a really nice touch, but it was a very result, but still only half of this record, which was around sort of £500,000, which sold just after the Queen had passed. So that gives you a slight idea as to where the Warhol market, particularly the higher end pieces, have sort of what the market's done since the peak. Other notable sales from the Phillips were from the Phillips sale with the mixture. These sold well, all within estimates, and again, a really work by Andy Warhol was the Superman. But this actually performed quite averagely. It did previously had been selling much higher. It's a work that we have a huge demand for in the private market. But overall, the Phillips sale was a really positive start to the year, and probably slightly unexpected as well. So that was a lot of guys that were excited, and it was obviously a very fun auction room to be in during those sales. Another very noticeable sale, which again is a work of Andy Warhol, which was the Details of Renaissance Sandro Botticelli, The Birth of Venus work. Now, this was a trial proof in a very rare and unseen colorway. It was a bright yellow background, so a very eye-catching color. This work sold exceptionally well, sort of 3 minutes thrilling bidding war between 2 sort of vying collectors, and the work sold for just over £230,000. The fees had been paid. It was 1.5 times the high estimate, and again, it was a trophy lot. They knew it was some performed as well, but again, we didn't really know that it would perform as well as it. So that would get a result from that sale. Another sort of interesting artist and is Damien Hirst. There was a sale which was for a full set of Virtues. We've seen, I know we discussed these before, how popular they are with new collectors also established, but for the set of Virtues, which he only released back in 2021, sold for over £120,000, which is a new record for these set of works, and just goes to show that whilst the market really quite soft and prices are correcting, the better pieces by these artists the value has sort of clung on. There are still very good sales individually for Damien Hirst Virtue pieces. So what we're generally finding, and this is sort of just taken from this one sale, is that the higher quality pieces, i.e. the more recognizable pieces, so the Queen Elizabeth by Andy Warhol, and again, the Details of Renaissance, it's a higher end work by Warhol. These pieces are holding up against a very soft market, and there's still sort of records that can be broken, which is really sort of promising to see. Another great artist, everybody that listens to the show knows that she's a huge favorite of mine, is Bridget Riley. again, we saw some auction records. So one of her works from the 1970s called Untitled Bronze sold for just under £15,000, which is a new record for that work. Again, it goes to show the sort of slightly rarer, more in demand pieces by these artists are still being sold way above the sort of estimates. And again, Two Blues, a smaller piece, a slightly newer piece, also made an auction record and beating the estimates and selling for around £10,000. So all in all, there's certainly highlights that we can take out of this Phillips evening and day sale. And there are also works that sold sort of at the low estimate and at the mid-range. But I've sort of just picked out the sales that I thought were most interesting.
Yeah, I do remember that Phillips January sale, and this is why I love print sales so much, especially when we're speaking of these blue chip artists, because one, they sort of, we look to the print sales to see how these blue chip branded artists are going to perform, to see if that has any knock-on effect on the originals in the marquee sales and vice versa. And everything you just described right there's so much variety. So like with Warhol's works, we saw, like, I guess you could call them icon works, Mick Jagger, Queen Elizabeth, and Superman. We saw these sort of take, as you said, they still sold incredibly well, but didn't quite hit that mark to set a new record. But instead, which still shows confidence in individual artist market, is we saw a very large interest in other prints of his, more rare to the market works. I think you said his Details of Renaissance works. And then of course, there's with Damien Hirst, the Virtues. He literally released those. When did he release those? Was it 2020 or
2021 is when, he did the collaboration with Henny, who published these as a timed release. I mean, there's the edition, there's some of them that are over 1,000 in edition, all signed on the back on a sticker on Hirst. But they're still performing exceptionally well. I mean, even some of Hirst's, in my opinion, better quality works that he's actually done in the studio, works from, say, 2002 to 2010. And these sort of spot pictures that he's produced that are a much smaller edition signed on the front. These aren't selling well at all comparative to this sort of machine created, slightly less hands-on works. It's very interesting.
It is. It's because you think about it, these prints are not that old, although they have circulated the market for a while, and people love them. The demand has definitely sustained itself with those prints time and time again.
They're very hangable.
Very hangable, yes. I absolutely agree. If I were to own a Hearst, I admit it. I guess that a Virtues would be a high contender.
I think so. And also, probably given how much that market has steadied up with those particular works, it's over the long run, there's not many that go unsold. The demand is still very strong for those. So it's probably, in the long run, not a bad thing to be buying.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. I want to move into some later months. I know there was a big sale in February. It wasn't necessarily a print sale, but a private collection, which we haven't seen too many of these years. The Elton John sale. What happened? What happened with that? Anything notable?
First of all, I have to say, a massive fan of Elton John, and I scoured through this sort of inventory of works that they were offering. It was fascinating. There was
something for everybody, right? There was paintings, there was collectibles.
There was objects of desire. You could buy shoes. You could also buy, obviously, artworks. You could buy outfits, costumes. It was a real spread, and also quite a significant collection of photographs as well, which I didn't know. I didn't realize how sort of into photographs he was. But obviously, in terms of artworks of serious interest, there was the original Banksy flower thrower, which sold exceptionally well. It was just above the high estimate. I believe it sold for just under £2 million, which $2 million, sorry. And that was a really good result, particularly given sort of what the Banksy market's been doing over the last couple of years. And again, there was the Keith Haring originals. So particularly these were works that you really don't often get the opportunity to buy. A lot of them are housed in private collections that won't move, or with museums, etc. And the sale, I think, after all the lots were offered, the sale made just over $8 million, which was much over the expected number that the auction house put on it. But it's fascinating what the sort of celebrity provenance, what people will pay in order to have that celebrity provenance. Obviously, Elton John is an icon of our time. It's not going to. He is the definition of celebrity. So I think collectors, buyers, even just enthusiastic fans of Elton John would have all been in the same room, all bidding on something. There's a one-off opportunity to own something that's actually been in the care of Elton John. So all of that culminated in a really fiery sale room, and naturally the results were incredible. One exceptionally strong result was for the Best Buddies, which is a pop shop, which is taken from the Pop Shop series done by Keith Haring, and that sold for an auction record of over $50,000. The regular edition doesn't sell anywhere sort of near this. It's a very nice work and a very popular work, but again, it's just the fact that it's got that Elton John provenance, and collectors will, fight tooth and nail in order to secure it.
Yes, I completely forgot about the Best Buddies offered in that sale. The Pop Shop works by Keith Haring are so collectible for a person of any age. There's so many to choose from, and the Best Buddies specifically, although it's the same imagery as another one of his Pop Shop prints, this one obviously has a philanthropic message, like much of Haring's art does, behind it. And I can't remember the last time we saw a Best Buddies at auction. I think one maybe came in 2023, but this one coming up in Elton John's collection, what a treat.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the celebrity provenance plus the fact that it is one of the most in-demand Keith Haring prints at the moment. It's very similar, like you said, to Pop Shop 1, where there's literally the exact same image, and people love Haring, people love the color, people love the sort of energy that you get from looking at these pieces. And again, like you said, the message behind it, which was particularly pertinent back when it was created, makes it just a really wonderful object to own.
So moving on to, let's see, most recently, there haven't been any, there have been a couple of online sales, but when was the last in-person print sale? I think it was in June. What happened in the June sale, Jasper?
Yeah, there was an interesting sale in June at Phillips, and I think the biggest or the biggest sort of surprise or point to sort of discuss was a work that was offered done by Bridget Riley it's called Riley's Untitled Oval Image, which is actually one of, if not the first print that Riley ever produced, which was done in 1964. And as we've previously discussed, the interest in Bridget Riley's early works, particularly works from the Fragments, which she began in 1965, a series of 8 prints done on plexiglass. These works have become incredibly rare and incredibly sort of desired by a lot of collectors looking at Riley, perhaps due to the fact that they don't come up for sale very often. There's not many of them, and also the success of Bridget Riley's market over the last couple of years has been very strong. So this work actually set a new print record for Riley, which was really exciting to see. Her print market's done exceptionally well. And the work actually sold for just under £83,000 before after fees had been paid. What's fascinating is, as a work, it encompasses every single bit of Bridget Riley's op art, her movement. It sort of makes you sort of almost hallucinate. There's a lot of sort of eye trickery going on while you're looking at this piece, but it's such a significantly higher result than what we've seen previously. But then if you look at how many times this work has been offered, it's over this work has never been offered. It's sort of doesn't very rarely come up. So the result is really promising, and it must have been a very intense bidding war, because I know the bidding started much lower than what the price was actually achieved at. So that was really great results. It's good to see the Riley market, with some new records in the Riley market.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think personally, I think Riley's market it's definitely on my watch list. It is very
Nice.
true. Her works are just very, very rare. And although some of them, like the ones you mentioned in the beginning of the year, those maybe set some new records selling for £10,000 or whatnot. Like this one, so her market does offer quite a range of accessibility, which I think is important. But then it's also capable of, big sales and a lot of excitement with these, rare pieces that come to market. So in the second half of the year, I think she's definitely an artist on my watch list. I'm sure she's one on yours too.
Oh, definitely. And I think you made a good point there, which is this is definitely top end pricing for Bridget Riley's market. A lot of it can be sort of accessed from between sort of £5,000-20,000, and you can pick up some really wonderful things around that price point. But I do agree with what you said. It is great to see that Riley, in a print form, so it's an edition work, you can actually sort of get very close to achieving that £100,000 or breaking through that, which just again sort of reinforces how the strength of her market in a very soft market.
Yeah, super exciting print sales for the first half of the year, and it's been a nice summer break. I'm going to be sad to see the warm weather go, but I'm definitely excited to see what else is out there. I'm looking forward to it. So let's get into the fun part. Let's make some predictions for the second half of 2024. I know you have some stuff written down, as do I. So should we take some turns on things we'd like to see or what we think will happen?
I think so. I'd love to hear your sort of, I'm not going to hold you to it, but your sort of outlook on what's coming up next.
Okay, well, let's see. I'll go first. So I'll keep it brief. From a market perspective, from a figures perspective, I think it's safe to say that at the end of the year, I think overall figures will still reflect down from 2023. But from a half year perspective, if we're looking at the figures from H2 2024 compared to H2 2023, I would hope to see those up a little bit. And I do think that the second half of the year figures will be up from the first half, which is usually how it plays out, because as we mentioned, the November sales are when the houses bring out their big consignments. I think in the sales, there will still be a high number of irrevocable bids and house guarantees, as this has been the auction house's tactic to secure the market right now, although this does leave the market in control of the hands of the ultra wealthy. So with that, looking at different categories of wealth. This is something that actually you and I were talking about the other day. We've invested a lot of interest and research in the Gen Z market and this new category of buyers and collectors. And, I think, especially pertaining to our market, the blue chip print market, I think I would really like to see an increased number of younger buyers entering the print market. And specifically the works that we deal with, blue chip branded artists, in that some do offer accessible entry points. With the inherent nature of editions, there's a lot of trading avenues and a lot of comparisons that can be made. And these works do prove to hold their value in uncertain or softening markets. So I hope to see something come from the Gen Z buyers. What about you, Jasper?
Yeah, I think it's interesting your point about the Gen Z buyers, and they definitely, with sort of the way the world is now, they definitely could, if they got heavily invested in the blue chip prints and multiples market, they could make a huge increase. A huge increase in terms of the volume of sales, and naturally the market will do well as a result of that. I think currently, as sort of Gen Z buyers can be enticed by up and coming and emerging talent, i.e. young sort of artists that haven't got a track record of very good sales like the sort of blue chip prints and multiples and the masters that we deal in. But people can be quite enticed to, oh wow, I could maybe make 10x returns. It's slightly riskier, but I quite like coming on this sort of artist journey without sort of the knowledge, or you're taking a much bigger risks essentially, as opposed to the nature of blue chip prints and multiples. If you just don't like works by Warhol, Hockney, Liechtenstein, Banksy, it can be quite difficult to get into that space. But I think once you're in the sort of blue chip space and you're realizing, wow, these artists have got such a huge breadth of work, I can buy works from this period and they're going to be costing around this. It's a really fun place to be and to build from. So I think maybe it's a case of just spreading a little bit more awareness about sort of these artists, about the fact that you can buy these editions that are signed in most cases by these artists and were sold commercially for the artists to move on to the next step in their career. I think that would make a huge impact, because as discussing with sort of other people in the industry, that the interest in up and coming and new artists is maybe slightly distracting, or taking away new younger collectors from markets that they would have previously had an interest in.
Yes, 100%. I agree with everything you just said. It's such an interesting conversation to be had, and one that I think is just starting, and there'll be a lot more to say about it in maybe the beginning of next year. But two things I really liked about what you said. One was that if this group of collectors enters, say the blue chip print market, that, just like you said, that creates volume, that creates a volume of sales. And right now, with all of the market analysis that we are doing and others are doing, that is one of the main points that is coming out. Although sales value is overall down, the volume of works is relatively stable. So, the volume, the sales volume, is just such an important thing to consider right now with the current state of the art market landscape. And then two, I really like what you said about, maybe if you don't like the specific artists, that were mentioned, maybe that could make the market a little bit limited. But definitely come speak to us, because I'm viewing that as a challenge, and let's see if we can change your mind about that.
And I agree, because if you look at very early Warhol works, black and whites, they're very different. Warhol and all the other artists went through such a transition of different styles, and so I'd be very surprised if somebody as a new Gen Z collector was like, I don't like any of it. The markets are so broad, and it's really important that you can very quickly glance over any sort of catalog resume and pick out bits that you like. So there's enough in there for everybody, I really think.
Yep, I think so too. Super important fact about the print market is that every artist market is so broad. It would take days to go over and get into each individually. So thank you so much for your sum up of the auction sales. That is super insightful. Definitely looking forward to the second half of the year. I do want to touch on one other really important thing that happened in the first half of 2024, and that is Banksy's London Zoo. Jasper, you were invited on Sky News to speak about this. So in case any of our listeners missed the goose chase through London that Banksy sent us all on, can you give a recap of what happened?
It was great. I mean, what Banksy did over those 8 days and released the artwork and sort of drip fed the public and all of our sort of curiosity was great. It was like a pantomime. I always think we were sort of in a sort of show that was being sort of slowly revealed by Banksy, and it was awesome to see how much interest that the whole world, actually, not just the UK, still has in Banksy. Hopefully, that'll sort of do the print market some good. However, I don't think there's a direct correlation between the Banksy street works and his print market. But it was a really busy period for us. I mean, Sheena, I know that you were were working every hour of the day to sort of cover all of the news, but it was great. It was fascinating, sort of figuring out. People were trying to sort of find out meanings as to all of these Banksys, and then Banksy sort of came out during the Observer and said, Banksy, the Pest Control, came out and said, well, actually, it's all just a bit of fun. But it was fascinating seeing how people just immediately want to decipher and figure out the wider meanings, because Banksy works typically have, quite profound statements behind them. But it was a really fun, exciting time. It was very busy, but awesome to see Banksy sort of back in the public image and doing what he does best.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, I'm sure there are some who will disagree with us because there are many differing opinions about not only Banksy's art, but say his whole personality. But, it was just a really fun thing to see. He still hasn't come out, say, with a meaning behind the works.
Yeah.
But, the excitement has calmed down a little bit. I think maybe we've all accepted them for what they were, which was something fun to do during the sleepy summer months in the art world. And I guess it was nice to see, Banksy back to his roots, back to the street.
It gave us an awful lot to talk about. And I'm still very interested in doing a sort of follow-up, sort of almost like a report or some sort of edit into how the Banksy pieces currently look now, because that's another element that you can't forget about. Works that get sort of defaced, they get moved, they get taken to sort of be protected, etc. So it's interesting comparing how they look on Banksy's Instagram, which is how they're supposed to be seen, as opposed to sort of how they sit now. I think most recently the two elephants in the windows have been spray painted over with stripes, so they almost look like zebras now, which is
no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it says an awful lot about how these things, or how we don't look after these things. Again, the satellite dish that was stolen again. So some of these are only sort of lasting for a few hours before they're sort of taken into other people's hands. But we'll definitely do something looking at Banksy's works and the longevity of Banksy. Again, that's something that a lot of people discussed is does Banksy still have a place? Because these works were quite soft in terms of their they didn't have a very strong meaning, and which is not typical of Banksy. So people were saying, has Banksy gone soft and things like that. But
what do you think, Jasper? Do you think Banksy has gone soft?
I don't think so. I think it was great, nice things, brighten up. The headlines had been so not fun and bleak, and all the stuff going on, in the UK and worldwide. It was quite nice that Banksy did something to, helped a lot of people take their mind off things. And it was all a bit of fun. And, the wonderful thing about Banksy is he always keeps you guessing. Sometimes works can be so upfront and that you can't really decipher meaning. It's almost too obvious that you look at them and you immediately know what's trying to be conveyed. So in a way, they're actually they keep you guessing, they keep you thinking, and in a way that's quite a nice thing, really. And it's very Banksy in sort of what do they mean. It's no one really knows, and that's all a bit of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. I thought that the art world was woken up unexpectedly, and I thought it was great. Okay, so Jasper, thank you so much for being here again. I'm so excited to be back doing these podcasts with you. As we mentioned, we expect to be busy for the second half of the year, and we're looking forward to it. Jasper, if you are always making sales, making deals. If any of our listeners would like to get in contact with you, how can they reach you?
Yeah, brilliant. So the best way to reach me is probably by email. So you can reach me at jasper@myartbroker.com. Alternatively, you can find me on my team on a website, and be more than happy to answer any questions about what we've discussed, about appraisals if you've got artworks, and give advice as well. So yeah, I welcome any sort of inquiry.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And again, my name is Sheena. I am the market editor from MyArtBroker. And thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And if there's anything you want to hear about, then let us know. We're always happy to chat.